Hello viewers, this is Censor Steve bringing you the latest news from the United States Department of Defense. He said that China's threat was aggressive and imminent, and the target was directly Taiwan. The statement was shocking and concerning. Today we'll re-examine the threat from China. Let's begin. On May 30th, United States Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth attended the Asia Security Summit in Singapore. But there, he made a very direct statement saying that China's threat is real and ongoing, and that China is trying to dominate Asia. Based on satellite imagery, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stated that China's plan to use force to resolve the situation is not merely a suspicion, but a fact. The United States speaking so directly and critically about China is highly unusual. He also said that China is preparing to use military force preemptively in the Indo-Pacific region to change the status quo. Secretary Hegseth said the United States will remain in the Indo-Pacific, stressing that Asia must bolster its own defense capabilities. Many experts interpret Secretary Hegseth's remarks as emphasizing that Asian countries should take more military responsibility for their own defense, rather than relying solely on the United States for security. Secretary Hegseth stated in a television interview that various nations are enhancing industrial technologies and developing critical infrastructure. He stated that South China Sea countries face pressure through water cannon attacks, provocative military actions, illegal administration, and militarization. He stressed that the international community will not tolerate China attempting to unilaterally and forcibly alter the current situation. He emphasized that military drills, daily operations targeting Taiwan, cyber attacks, and physical provocations are not mere provocations but preparations for a full-scale war. The defense minister's statement at the Shangri-La dialogue was inevitable due to China's continued intention to intervene in Taiwan. In reality, China continues to build up its forces to invade Taiwan. According to top Taiwanese military officials, the Chinese People's Liberation Army has significantly improved its attack and blockade capabilities, allowing it to launch a full-scale invasion at any time, even under normal circumstances. This means China can now rapidly shift from peacetime to wartime operations, enabling swift and aggressive military actions. China has been gradually ramping up military pressure on Taiwan in recent years. Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense announced that Chinese military aircraft have entered Taiwan's air defense identification zone over 245 times this year, a 25-fold increase compared to just 10 times 5 years ago. This change signals China's ongoing systematic militarization of Taiwan's airspace, rather than mere military training. Chinese military aircraft regularly cross the Taiwan Strait median line over 120 times monthly, systematically trying to neutralize the maritime boundary. Consequently, the likelihood of China fully occupying Taiwan is now deemed lower than before, as both sides fail to attain genuine stability, and the risk of military conflict is assessed to be higher. In October 2024, the Chinese military sent a record 153 aircraft into Taiwan's airspace in a single day, demonstrating an aggressive and coordinated show of force tactically and strategically. This is not just a display of China's military might, but a stark warning that the risk of a real military confrontation is escalating. It is also viewed as a key factor heightening tensions in the Taiwan Strait and across the Indo-Pacific region. Also, tensions are rising sharply regarding the South China Sea and the East China Sea. As you may know, China's dominance in the South China Sea is also excessive. By constructing artificial islands in the South China Sea, they are asserting territorial claims, leading to protests from several Southeast Asian nations. Now, most of these artificial islands are being used as military bases and missile defense systems. In some areas, they've even built airports, showing their intention to expand their influence over the South China Sea. Although China initially claimed the artificial islands in the South China Sea were for research, they are now clearly being used for military purposes. As they continue uploading videos, more people seem to be becoming aware of this. China has built 2 so-called floating platforms and 1 fixed facility that even has a heliport, according to reports. China has recently built 3 more large floating platforms, according to reports. China has installed 13 buoys, claiming they are for marine observation. However, most are equipped with advanced sensors, allowing them to collect ocean data and potentially be used for military purposes. This means that China is gradually tightening its control over the West Sea. Reportedly, 13 buoys are installed in the PMG, an area exclusively used for fishing and joint industries. Installing such structures goes against the agreement, yet China continues to do so. The government requested China to remove the buoys, but China ignored the request. China's cyber warfare capabilities are currently being evaluated as extremely powerful. Since 2014, Xi Jinping has consistently ordered the bolstering of China's cyber capabilities, leading to a decade-long increase in their offensive investment. All key elements such as the government, institutions, industries, and political parties that could be beneficial to China have been targeted by cyber attacks. These attacks have either stolen important government information or disrupted networks. Cyber attacks are growing in frequency and sophistication. In 2023, they escalated attacks on finance, media, manufacturing, and telecommunications industries, surpassing the previous year's figures. According to data released by the FBI's Cyber Division and Intelligence Analysis Center warned that China is rapidly increasing its cyber threats, focusing primarily on the United States. The number of Chinese hackers identified by the FBI has grown over 50 times higher. Not only that, but they also use civilians to carry out various espionage operations against the United States, and have even created organizations that make it harder for the government to detect them. On this day, Defense Minister Hang Sesao did not directly criticize China. Defense Minister Hang Sesao said the United States is shifting from a defensive stance to an offensive approach to maintain peace through strength. Especially, he emphasized the points that should be noted. It is noteworthy that the United States defense budget has reached an all-time high, exceeding $1 trillion, with the final amount set at about $1.384 trillion. If this is passed as it is, the unprecedented scale of increased United States defense spending is seen as a symbolic move indicating a more aggressive and military-oriented stance in the country's history. But the important point here is that this fierce United States-China rivalry is not simply about strengthening America's military power. The United States is also working to bolster the role of its allies. Prime Minister Heng Sayes strongly urged Asian allies to increase their defense spending. Heng Sayes cited Europe as an example, noting that after the Ukraine war, NATO members realized they could not rely solely on the United States for security and began to significantly increase their own defense spending. He stressed that Asian nations must take responsibility for their security and boost defense spending. Heng Sayes expressed concern about the United States' evolving role in the region, calling it a current reality that needs to be addressed. Based on recent statements from top United States Department of Defense officials, it appears they are contemplating a reduction in the presence of United States Forces Korea. Reports suggest that out of the 28,500 troops, around 4,500 could be reduced and redeployed to strategically important areas like Guam, Japan, or the Philippines. Exact numbers have not been released yet. This strategy is interpreted as a preemptive move to secure strategic flexibility, so that if China tries to attack Taiwan, the troops can be quickly deployed as a mobile force rather than being stationed only in Korea. In other words, the United States Forces Korea will not only be stationed on the Korean peninsula to deter North Korea, but will also be able to play a broader role in responding to security threats from China and other countries. The United States Forces Korea will now project power throughout the Indo-Pacific region, not just deter North Korea. This will significantly impact South Korea's national security strategy. The issue is that South Korea's burden isn't reducing proportionally to the United States military's changing role and strategic transformation. The United States is again considering renegotiating South Korea's share of defense costs, which is expected to be significantly higher. The demands go beyond just the monetary amount, including modernizing power transmission, allowing entry of United States military systems, expanding joint training, and providing military bases. President Tumpa has publicly called the United States Forces Korea a mercenary force protecting South Korea for money and demanded a rise in defense cost sharing. Since there is a high possibility that similar actions will be repeated this time, it is very important for South Korea to strengthen its negotiating power. Moreover, South Korea's defense budget increase is unavoidable. As military tensions with China rise, South Korea must strengthen its defense capabilities to avoid being forced into passive choices in the United States, China competition without alternatives. South Korea may ultimately need to choose between prioritizing its own defense against North Korean and Chinese threats or joining United States-led joint operations as an ally. This is a sensitive issue that could significantly impact not only the South Korea-United States alliance, but also the security structure of the entire East Asian region, including South Korea-China relations. The incoming South Korean government must soon clearly define its diplomatic policy, whether to maintain the current framework of the South Korea-United States alliance and South Korea-China relations, or to adjust it. If, in this process, a diplomatic decision is made unilaterally without sufficient national consensus, or if a diplomatic action is taken, there are concerns that this could lead to instability in both diplomatic relations and national security. Therefore, in the current situation, the most important things are strategic clarity and maintaining consistency in diplomacy. A diplomatic strategy is needed to make our United States alliance more transparent and public, while cautiously managing relations with China to avoid unnecessary conflicts. Simultaneously, we face issues like national unity, defense cost sharing, and United States troop redeployment that require resolution. It has become a situation where we have no choice but to engage in increasingly difficult diplomacy. In the end, Yang Sayes's remarks are not just simple rhetoric or diplomatic gestures, but are fundamentally based on the strategic intentions of the United States. At the same time, they clearly show the real military and economic burdens that are being placed on East Asian countries. What are your thoughts on the current threat from China? Share in the comments, and we'll try to reflect your views in upcoming videos. Thanks for your input.